If you're upset with the way cruise prices are skyrocketing, then brace yourself because there's a storm brewing that might change your vacation options. Hello, my friends. I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about how cruise prices are skyrocketing, but I've always been a little skeptical because it's hard to compare a single week-long cruise in one particular year to a similar week-long cruise in another particular year, just because cruise prices have so many variables that influence them, including the season, how far out from the sail date you're booking it, whether or not it falls on a holiday or a spring break, what ship you're on, and what part of the world you're sailing in. But it's been exactly a year since I posted that video that went, well, as close to viral as I'll ever get, in which I talked about the real cost of retiring on a cruise ship through back-to-back cruises. In that video, I tallied up a full 99 days on Royal Caribbean's lovely Freedom of the Seas. So who better to compare the cost of cruising from one year to the next than me, really? Because while a single week might fluctuate wildly, when you're comparing a longer span of time, like 99 days, you'll get a much more valid look at whether or not cruise prices are escalating as much as people are saying online. Keep in mind that I'm not a travel agent, so I'm not trying to sell you on cruising. I'm also unsponsored and I pay for all my cruises. So if you value unbiased, unsponsored content on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers by my birthday, and it will really help me out. Thank you. As I mentioned, last year's video spanned 99 days of solid back-to-back cruising while staying on the same ship, so there were no hotel stays in between. We were tallying up cruises that were well in advance of the sail date, a range of time that would begin in January of 2026 and ended in April of 2026. So we were doing it almost 2 years in advance. So this year I'll do the same thing, 99 days beginning in mid-January of 2027 and ending in mid-April of 2027. So it will be the same amount of time in advance. I actually managed to get the exact same number of days. I also lucked out and found that I could do the comparison on the same ship as I did before, the Freedom of the Seas, and sailing out of the same port, Miami. Perfect! And just as before, they'll be focused in the Caribbean. I'll also be giving you prices for 2 people in an interior cabin, just like I did a year ago. And as these prices start coming in, you'll see that they're not quite as outlandish as I was thinking they might be. Considering that cruising includes a ton of activities and a lot of food, you still get a lot of bang for your buck. But fasten your seatbelt because my mood is about to darken. As before, I should also point out that I'm going with the option to choose my own cabin rather than letting Royal Caribbean do it for me. That's because these are back-to-back cruises, and that way I can keep all of my belongings in the same cabin. That's one of the main reasons I always tell people to book early if you're going to do back-to-back cruises, because if you do it quickly after those new cruises drop, then you can usually get the same cabin. And that, my friends, is really important, especially if you're doing shorter back-to-back cruises like you're seeing here, because packing and repacking is a big pain. That said, if you want to save money and are just doing one cruise, then letting Royal Caribbean choose your cabin for you can save you a good amount of money if you're not a control freak like me. But I'm sticking with the same formula that I did last year, just so that we're comparing apples to apples, as they say. However, all that said, I'm seeing a disturbing trend with these cruises that I'm not liking at all. Last year when I did this tally, these shorter cruises on board the Freedom included Perfect Day at Coco Cay on every single sailing, meaning that for the final price I gave you, you could imagine yourself on a private island paradise more than once a week. That sounded really appealing to me. But this time as I'm doing the tally, I noticed that even though they're keeping us in the Caribbean, I only see 3 stops total at Perfect Day at Coco Cay. That's terrible, honestly, considering how many cruises we're tallying up. But I suppose it's to be expected because Royal Caribbean keeps getting all these new ships. They've now got the Icon, the Utopia, and the Star of the Seas is coming out this summer, and the Legend of the Seas will also be coming out, and that will be in 2026, which is before this itinerary I'm setting up now occurs. And all of these new ships boast Perfect Day at Coco Cay itineraries. So that means some of their other ships are going to be left out in the cold. I do see that a lot of these itineraries take us to Labadee, Haiti, which is where Royal Caribbean does have a private resort. but I don't really consider that to be even nearly an equivalent to CocoCay. Not just because that resort doesn't nearly have the amenities or the activities as Perfect Day, but also because there's a lot of turmoil on Haiti, and Royal Caribbean has often needed to cancel this port simply because it's too dangerous. So since there's usually a huge premium for cruises that go to Perfect Day at CocoCay, I'm thinking that this tally I come up with should be a lot cheaper than what we saw last year, rather than more expensive. Also keep in mind that the Freedom will be a full year older than it was for that last tally. And with these new ships Royal Caribbean has, there are even more ships to choose from. So again, logic tells us that this tally should come in a lot cheaper because competition usually drives prices downward. And I'm really excited to see this all total up. And here we are at the end of our 99 days with a total of $26,072.08. Now I wind back time a full year and look at what I came up with and see that my total for 99 days back then was $25,359.46. Wait, what? It actually went up? Even with only 3 days at Perfect Day at CocoCay? And cruising on a ship that has aged yet another year? And even with more ships to choose from? I'm honestly stunned. How about you? I'd love to hear your comments below. I realize that on the surface, a 2.81% increase doesn't seem too bad considering prices on everything seem to be going up these days. But especially considering the nearly complete absence of days at Perfect Day at CocoCay, I was not expecting an increase at all. Now let's throw in gratuities for 2 people, which, by the way, also got increased by Royal Caribbean last year. So in last year's tally, gratuities for 99 days were $3,564, bringing that total to $28,923.46 for 99 days. And in this year's tally, we're at $3,663 for gratuities, bringing that total up to $29,735.08. So there it is. I suppose if I wanted to put a positive spin on this, it's that at least the price is fairly close to before, meaning that Royal Caribbean isn't pricing us out completely. But with Royal Caribbean clearly skimping on the ports for those of us who aren't willing to pay a premium for those newer ships, it's not something to celebrate. In fact, it's something that might make many of us who are traveling on a budget rethink our vacation options. Because for myself anyway, one of the reasons I so often choose Royal Caribbean, specifically when I'm going to cruise in the Caribbean, is because I really enjoy Perfect Day at CocoCay. If they price me out of that private island port, that's when I start thinking about other cruise lines, like Norwegian, which I've always enjoyed, Carnival, or even Princess. But I hope this gives you a better understanding of just how much cruises are going up these days. Not to depress you, but just so that you'll be better prepared when you go to plan your next vacation. As always, please remember to hit that subscribe button so that I can hit 10,000 subs by my birthday. I'd be so grateful. And thank you for watching, for subscribing, and for making this channel such a wonderful, supportive community.